I'm here with Joe Policastro, co-founder of Cycle CPA. And today we have Chris Penny on from Lucrative Landscaping. So excited to have you on, Chris. Where are you joining us from?
Hey there, super pumped to be here. I've been really enjoying your content in your group there. Right now, I'm in Playa del Carmen on the Caribbean Sea here in Mexico. Here for the next few months before heading on to somewhere else, and just recently became full-time nomadic. So I've traveled for long periods of time in the past with my partner and on my own. But we've always had an apartment back home that we could bail out and go back to. We might have to kick out an Airbnb or something like that. But this time we're fully committed, so we've been really enjoying that so far.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's great.
I am so, like I said, I'm so excited to talk about, some of your journey through the green industry, and now, your book. And I know that you've been extremely successful in the past. You've been in it for 20 years in this industry. You have built a landscaping company, sold it successfully, and now you're teaching other business entrepreneurs in this industry how to do that themselves through, systems optimization, marketing strategies, things of that nature. So if you could, give us a little intro.
sure. Oh man. Okay. So in the past, I've gone way too long on this intro because it's crazy to think that it's been 20 years and a lot has happened in that time. I mean, when I first started, I was terrified of managing anybody because I was like a kid. So I did this brilliant thing, and to avoid responsibility, franchised the business instead. And so I had 5 franchisees running these little mini student businesses, and we learned so much about positioning and marketing through that. That was probably about 15 years ago now, when Google Ads and that stuff was so easy that you could do it terribly and still get away with it. What I realized eventually was that I could kind of combine these two abilities of, looking after the staff properly and then marketing for good clientele that care about where their money is going and who's going to be in their backyard every week. And it was like really powerful. We were able to grow businesses much faster than like anything I'd really seen before, sort of. Along with the data and all that goes into being able to see the results that you're getting relative to your spend. Like with traditional marketing, when you're kind of throwing your flyers out, you put 10,000 flyers out in the spring and then you hope it comes back. Like that's pretty hard to kind of push traditional budgets. Like I've heard people saying, actually, I would love to hear your take on this, but I've heard sort of a rule of thumb as to like a safe spot for marketing budget is like 3% of top line sales or something like that. And I'm curious what you think about that, because I've sort of seen that once you can prove that you're getting the return on your spend, then I'm not sure that 3% budget is making as much sense anymore. What do you guys think?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so I think tying it to we covered this in one of the webinars that we did, but ultimately tying the marketing spend to not as much your revenue, and it is a great metric to and a KPI to be able to look at, even compare it to industry averages. But for your own business, right, looking at that marketing spend and then looking at, all right, if I do want to grow my business, maybe more than an average landscaping company, and I have to invest more, capital into the business or make that investment into marketing, making sure that the results that you're looking at the net income, right? And I think, and I'm not sure if you would agree or not, Chris, but that's really what the goal of marketing is to make sure that you're getting a return on those marketing dollars. And if you continue to get return, then why not scale that up? If you can spend $100 to get $500, why not do it? So
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Carly, what were you wanting to say?
I was just saying, like, going back to your initial question, like, I feel that the 3% is just to kind of um, keep on going with the same kind of clientele to recover anything that you've lost. It's not really to, ramp up and grow aggressively
Right.
as
More with
far as that.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of a nebula, sort of a tricky question, because in terms of what to tie it to, because it can be pretty difficult to track what dollars are coming from what marketing.
Yeah.
And I see people really struggling with that. And it depends too whether you're talking about like landscape installation or reoccurring maintenance. I mean, if you're keeping your clients for a really long time, that's going to make a big difference than if you're keeping them for a shorter amount of time. And then it's also going to affect your time to cost recovery. So then you have that whole other metric in there as to like, how long can you afford to be negative on it before you make that money back, and that's more your guys' territory in terms of cash flow and managing that. What I see is, normally I see people comparing their marketing to the number of raw leads that they're bringing in. And I think that this is a pretty big mistake, because not all leads are equal, especially raw leads. So one example I have is there was a client that they I guess they weren't really watching their own returns. They were kind of just trusting their marketing provider as to how things are going. And so they would just get a report from their marketing provider as to like what their cost per lead was. And then they would look at their CRM and then look at their closing rates. And then they would kind of calculate that out to what their cost of acquisition was. But there's this huge discrepancy that I keep seeing over and over again, and that unfortunately really messed up this guy's business when we uncovered this, was that the raw leads that the marketer is tracking is usually not the same as the leads that are being tracked in a business's CRM. So usually the business that, like, if a business is going to bother putting it in their CRM, it's probably somewhat qualified. But what this marketer was doing is they were counting every single phone call that came through the website, every single form submission that came through the website, and every single chat. Now, what they weren't telling their client was that a massive percentage of this are unqualified leads. Like we know people calling for like equipment repair, or people calling for services you don't sell, or people calling for service from outside of your territory. But another huge percentage of what these leads are just your clients trying to get a hold of you. So they're reporting their cost per lead by taking another trick that marketers do is they'll not include their own cost. So they won't count the retainer cost divided into the number of leads. They'll just count like the ad spend. So watch out for that. You should probably be counting more than just that. Sometimes I recommend people go so far to, maybe not officially in their financial reporting, but like to track admin costs that's put towards new leads. So if you have a phone tracking system that's telling you how many new leads are coming in, you can easily see how many minutes they're spending on the phone. And that cost, I think, should be applied to that cost per lead also, or it could be also as a way of measuring that. Because what happens is, well, I guess I already said it. They had this huge number of leads that doesn't equal the qualified leads. So, and then they're dividing not the whole cost into that. So they wind up with this tiny little cost per lead number that doesn't really equate to anything that the business is going to be able to calculate on their end. So then I come along and we have a system that automatically qualifies the leads, because we used to have the businesses manually tag them, but we found that compared to automatically doing it, the accuracy wasn't there. And another thing that I think is really important that especially smaller businesses understand is the idea of statistical significance, where just because it happened once a certain way doesn't mean that it's going to keep happening that way. And so if it happens 1,000 times a certain way, that's kind of typically for like e-commerce or online marketing, you're going to want about 1,000, a sample size of about 1,000 before you can really trust that it actually is going to continue to be similar. But in local businesses, that's pretty much impossible. Like they'd have to be really cranking to be able to do that. So generally, I would say that they aim for about 100. But then when you're looking at it at 100, your tests have to be so different that, like, because the statistical significance could mean that you're accurate within a percentage. So I can't do the math in my head, but let's say that statistical significance is accurate to within 20% at a sample size of 100. if one test beats the other test by 10%, that doesn't tell you anything. And so when we get into looking at small businesses tracking their marketing and how they're sort of, well, from what we found, it's quite, like, first of all, asking a client where they heard about you from, like, they don't even know. and then the number of times that we found that admin people don't accurately track, like they maybe forget to ask sometimes or whatever. So combined with that, when we were comparing that against our own data sets, it was like good for them to be asking just for, you know, just for a simple test. But the statistical significance was so low that it didn't really give us anything actionable, because the accuracy was, it was all the results were so similar that it's like you can't tell what's going on. So yeah, so we started tracking it automatically, and so we have a system where we do it in the phone menu, and then we also go based on the length of the phone call, and so we can figure out pretty accurate. Well, we also, to test our hypothesis, like we paid poor guy John in the Philippines. He listened to thousands and thousands of phone calls and manually tagged them on our own, so we could get that accurate, and then we compared our findings against like our algorithm, so to speak, so that we could make sure that it was accurate. And so now we have a system that very accurately can figure out which of the leads are actually qualified automatically. And so we go back to this client and we tell him our cost per lead, and he's going, well, when I started working with you guys, I expected like maybe it would be about the same as what I had before, and then we'd get better from there. I wasn't expecting it to be like way worse. And it was like, wait a minute, like it's not way worse. We've actually, like, if we clear out the garbage in your old tracking and compare apples to apples, what you thought it used to be was like, I think he was off by like 300%. Like it was like, it was just brutal. So I think that if you can track, like in an ideal world in e-commerce where you can actually track which dollars came from which ad clicks, that's the best. But the next closest from there, I think, is getting a way that you can accurately track which leads are qualified, because then you can do a much better job of seeing which marketing channels are bringing in the qualified leads. And then you can go even deeper than the channels that you wouldn't be able to do just by asking people, and you can find out which ads are bringing in qualified leads, or which keywords that are triggering which ads are bringing in qualified leads. And then it makes it like so much easier to manage these campaigns, because you could just look in the ad account like, oh, this ad did this ad did that, like let's turn off the one that's not doing anything and put that money towards the one that is doing something. And I have yet to find a good way to articulate it, but it's like you're kind of losing twice, because that money that you could be using to bring in more business is instead being used to, it's just being wasted. So it's like you're wasting it and you're not applying it to something that could be winning. So yeah, that's kind of where I think about like how these things should be better optimized. And then from there, we did all sorts of crazy like database analysis stuff, where we were looking at cohort analysis and trying, and like we were doing we found a way to do reporting on the client lifetime value relative to the first service purchased. So we could see, like, if you sell a one-off aeration, does that turn into $1,000 client down the road that's worth maybe losing money up front because you know you'll make it later, or does it not? And we don't track that as deeply as much now that we've done, like after we started doing that analysis, it was pretty clear that like the businesses that bring in the types of clients who do want more work down the road are going to be more worthwhile to sell that smaller upfront service. Excuse me. And the businesses who don't, it's absolutely not worth it. So I don't know that everybody needs to do such a deep analysis, but I think what they should be doing is striving to be attracting the types of clients who are going to be more likely to spend more money down the road. Sure. And it doesn't mean not having the rest of them, but I think the whole business should be tailored around, well, actually, this would be another good question for you guys, would be when you see businesses in terms of profitability, do you see any sort of trends around the types of clients they have? And I don't mean what services they're selling, but more, are they my kind of instinct and from what I've seen over the years has been that the businesses who sell themselves as very high-end services with really strong guarantees and a lot of emphasis on customer service, at first glance, you might think they're less profitable because they put so much money into looking after their people. But from what I see, it's kind of the opposite. That money seems to come back and makes them much more profitable businesses. But do you guys have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think. Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Carl. Go ahead.
I think what I have seen with our clients is that um, the clients who are most profitable are those who are sure of what they're providing and are confident in their business and in their employees and in themselves. And they market themselves in a way where on social media, it all ties together. So their brand, their attitude, their work, and their quality, it's all sending the same message. We're professional, quality service. We have years of experience, and then that attitude, that confident attitude, and those those are the clients that are the most profitable. Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
and I would say that there are inherently clients or customers that will not be ideal for any business.
Right.
But companies that I think have these quality clients, right, and even quality employees, I think it more comes down to not externally how those clients or customers are, but how internally how they handle the processes within their company, how they price out their jobs, right? Because a company that may say, oh, I have some clients and they're not good, they don't pay a lot, stuff like that. At the end of the day, that responsibility falls, I would say, more on the business, right? It's their responsibility to price it correctly and be profitable. So, and Chris, I thought it was a great point how you had mentioned, there's some data, right, that you see in some metrics that through some of your studies and research, that you've seen and you've even seen other companies kind of look at, right, and how it really doesn't show the true picture, right? And it's interesting because it's similar to some of the accounting and some of the specific things within accounting and looking at metrics versus KPIs, right? So which one of those metrics are actually the ones that we should be focusing on, and which ones actually tell us what's actually going on? So I thought it was very interesting how that sort of it's very very similar there. And if you can give us an idea, Chris, because I know you'll come out with your book, Lucrative Landscaping. If you can give us an idea of kind of what you cover in that.
Okay, well, it's a 300-page book and it's about, I don't know, it's like 20, 30 chapters. So let me see, what do I cover? I mean, it's the first half of it is kind of more the strategy, and then the second half is more the tactical implementation of the strategy. And so first, it's important to understand like why we're doing any of the tactical parts, because I find a lot of people are always pretty excited just to like implement as fast as possible, but if they don't know why they're implementing or what the strategy is behind the tactic, then it doesn't work so well. So the first part of the strategy is really kind of this idea of, it's kind of, I mean, it has the soft sciences of psychology and, sales and copywriting and these kind of things is baked into it. But I've found that you don't really need to be that unique in this industry to get away with that stuff. And I say get away with because that's probably the wrong word. I say to be successful in that because the bar is so low in the industry. So that's like, it's actually very, very easy. I've yet to come into a territory that it's not very easy to stand out from. And so we talk a lot about what types of clients you're trying to attract. And of course, you're never going to get 100% mix of them, but the more you can stack your client base with those clients that trust you and just want to pay top dollar to have the job done properly, the more, and the same kind of on the hiring side also, the more you can stack your team with the people that are excited about learning, excited about growing, excited about being responsible for the work that they're doing, excited about having a positive impact on the territory that they're working in, being part of a team that's growing and chance for upward momentum. You know, the more you can stack your company with those people, the easier it will be as you grow. And then the opposite is true if you don't. So I've seen people say like, I would never want to grow my company because if it's this hectic now, like forget about how crazy it's going to be then. And that's a real indicator to me that they're stacking their company with the wrong people. Because if you kind of position yourself like the average landscaping business, which is kind of like mow, blow, and go, here's a list of services we do, take it or leave it, you know, you're going to attract the people who aren't as concerned about the quality of what you're doing and not as willing to pay for it. So that's kind of what we learned when we switched from working with students to taking more responsibility for the work. And then when the doctors and lawyers started coming out, that was the big like aha moment there. It was like, oh man. And the way that we figured that out actually was we started doing pretty consistent, like reaching out to our client base to ask for feedback. And we put an anonymous feedback form in our subject, in our email signatures and that stuff too. And we said, if you don't tell us who you are, we might not fix your problem, but at least we'll take it into consideration. But we started collecting a lot more feedback, and right away it was obvious that there was a bunch of clients that wanted it to be like cheaper and faster, and a bunch of clients that wanted a better job and didn't seem to be too concerned about the price. Just were like, can you please just slow down and do it perfectly kind of. And so we were sort of like really not sure who to look after, like who do we listen to, because not everybody was giving us feedback. It wasn't like if 100% of our clients gave us feedback, then back to that statistical significance thing, we could be like, okay, enough of them want this way, let's do it that way. But it wasn't really like that. It was kind of just the clients who are willing to give us feedback that were giving us feedback. And so what we wound up doing was we were using Service Autopilot, and so we were able to do our job costing for like a couple of years of services, and we had done it perfectly. We had all the drive times, everything tracked really nicely. And so what we did was we made an analysis of the top 20 most profitable clients and the bottom 20 least profitable clients. And then we compared that with the feedback we were getting, and we started to only listen to the feedback from the more profitable clients. And it kind of painted this picture where, okay, that's what the profitable people want. Like, let's do what they want. And so we went so far even as to use their language in our marketing. You know, like we would, like if they said they wanted this, we would say we do this, exactly what they were saying. And that's really what started to move the needle and get these people who wanted a higher quality service and who were willing to pay for it to come out. And that we were also looking at like, what could we add on to our service? So when we doubled our pricing, we didn't only double it. We did that. And what we did was we looked at what could we add to our service offering that would improve the perceived value, but not necessarily would cost us very much more. And it wasn't too hard to come up with. It wasn't earth shattering, but like we put striping kits on our mowers. We had a special, in more southern territories, they edge everything always, but up in Canada, nobody was edging or doing like a blade edger around the beds and stuff. So we started doing that. All the services, we would blow off all the surfaces. All of the mowing. Every time we came to mow, we would blow off all the surfaces. We wouldn't just clean up our own mess. We would actually like blow off the pine needles off their cars and clear off their decks of any leaves and things like that. So just kind of little things that only took a few extra minutes to beef up the perceived value of our service. And since then, I've learned that it's kind of this idea of there's sort of like this idea of price elasticity kind of, or perceived value, where you can increase your pricing and have people be very happy about it without having to increase your costs like directly proportionally to it. So we did that along with increasing our prices significantly, and it worked really well. And the people who liked it really liked it, and the people who didn't want it, they were not happy. But that was okay, because it was, I mean, that was something I had to learn the hard way too, was like yes, we love our clients, but they aren't really our friends in the end. You know, and so people who I thought were like I had been mowing their lawn since I was like 12 years old, you know what I mean? They're saying, how dare you raise your price? You know, it was kind of like, okay, we're not really friends. You know, like it was like, oh, that's why you're giving me like cookies every time I come, because you know you're severely underpaying. Yeah. So they were pretty annoyed, but I had to get over that, because otherwise the business wasn't going to survive. And so, yeah, figuring out how to add that in so that we could raise the price, and then figuring out how to attract those people. But then since then, what we figured out was, so I mentioned how we can qualify the leads automatically, and that actually is much more crazy than I think what people realize is possible these days, because the way our ads are run now are by artificial intelligences or by machine learning. Like when I first started, we had this insane account where it was like dialed in to the max, and it took like hundreds of hours of tweaking and optimizing to get it to work. And then they came out with this like AI bidding and stuff, and all the marketers like hated it right away. And I'm a natural skeptic, so I'm wondering, like, do the marketers hate it because it doesn't work, or do they hate it because we don't need them as much anymore? And at first, it's debatable. But then after, I think it was about 2-3 years of it being a thing, there were some marketers starting to say like, no, there's something to this, you know? And so we started doing our own testing with it, and it beat our crazy system by like 20%. Like it was like, it was clear. And then since then, what we've learned is that what makes or breaks the machine learning system is the quality of the feedback that it gets. So it's just like anything. If you're trying to teach a baby how to do something, like it needs some kind of feedback loop. Otherwise, it's just like floating in space, you know? And so when you let your ads just do whatever, like it doesn't matter how much machine, it doesn't matter how smart your machine is. If nobody's saying this was good, this was bad, it doesn't get better. And so now that we automatically qualify our leads, what we can do is we can send only the qualified leads back as conversions to the ad platforms. And so it's actually learning in real time from the phone calls, like the live phone calls, to better target for us automatically. So when we combine that technology with that sort of softer positioning stuff, that's just magical, because and that's where like people don't really need marketing agencies anymore. I don't think. Okay, I say that a bit heavy-handedly, but I acknowledge that in a lot of cases it's good to have an agency to help with. But I think that a lot of business owners would be very much empowered to understand how these systems work, and to, at least at a basic level, so that they can see if their marketing is using this or not, and maybe be able to manage their marketing better. And so that's a lot of what the book is about, is how do you think about attracting these people, and what are these people looking for? You know, like, I mean, for residential mowing, from what I understand, it's generally a female person who is making the buying decisions, and they want to know who the heck is going to be in my backyard every week, you know? So if you're hiring, sorry, not hiring, if you're what I call it hiding behind your logo. Like so many landscaping businesses hide behind their logo, and that doesn't give anybody the opportunity to see who the heck is going to be in my backyard every week. And so you know, so we teach in the book, we teach how to use how to generate content based around the same conversations that you have on the phone with your clients and your prospects all the time, but record those, put them on your website. You know, like you could write out a frequently asked questions. That's great too. But if you can get you or an admin assistant who's used to saying these spiels all the time on the website, explaining it there, I guess that's another whole concept we talk about, is this idea of moving the sales process upstream. That's a whole nother area of theory, where it used to be that sales had all the data because they were the ones talking to the clients. Marketing, you know, you put out your your radio advertisement, you have no idea what it does after that. But it's sales who then talks to the people who come in, and so they get the feedback, and that's how that feedback loop would then sales would talk to marketing and say, hey, your leads suck, you need to do this, and that's typically the conversation, at least. And then that would be the loop. But now that marketing gets that data directly, I argue that actually marketing has much more insight than sales even does, because sales is only seeing what marketing's bringing in, whereas marketing actually has a bit more insight into the whole market that's there. We can see how many times did our ads get seen, and out of those, how many times did they get clicked on? Like, sales has no idea. So part of that idea is moving that sales conversation into your marketing. And then by doing that, it actually makes the sales conversation that much easier. And I think that's really important in landscaping businesses, because typically, from what I see, unless they're very big companies, they don't have trained salespeople. They more have admin staff.
Right.
And so there's a lot of strategies that I see that just don't make any sense to send those kinds of leads to admin staff, because like they're not experienced and they're not trained. They don't have like it's not even worth it for them to get the training, because the commissions aren't there, you know, like a car salesman or a insurance salesman. It might be worthwhile for them to do a lot more practice on that. It doesn't really make as much sense. So yeah, this idea of moving sales upstream, conveying the right messages so that you're attracting the right kinds of clients, and then leveraging the right technology to push that message out into the public. And then on the back end, having the system in place for keeping track of what is doing what, so that you can allocate to what's getting you the results that you're looking for.
Very nice, Chris.
Yeah, that's what the book is all about.